Well, boys, looks like you started the fun without me.
You're all sick. Every last one of you.
We're going to need a bigger gun.
What's the matter? You scared of things that go boom, boom?
Give me one goddamn reason why I shouldn't blow your goddamn brains all over that goddamn wall.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Violence. My name is Eric, I'm here with Michael, and we made it all the way to the end of the fucking year.
Awesome.
How did that happen?
We watched too much film. Too many movies.
So we have a lot of angry women on today's show.
Yeah, we do.
Sometimes, as with Mean Girls, they are lashing out amongst their own kind. Woman-on-woman violence. With a case of the other movie. What's the other movie?
Faster Pussycat, kill, kill.
How many pieces of punctuation are in that title, by the way?
At least 3. I think 4.
No hyphen in that title. Pussycat, one word. It's women on, I don't know, cripple violence, is that it?
Yeah,
women on the disabled.
Beating up disabled people.
Women kicking men's asses. We're going to spoil both of these year-end spectacular films. And if you did not see them, shame on you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make the case for Mean Girls on this show. Because what actually happened is people watched the trailer. They went on YouTube, they watched the trailer for Faster Pussycat, and then they assumed they could just come to the show. They're probably going to skip Mean Girls. And as we talk about Faster Pussycat, they'll say, I remember the part from that trailer. I'm going to make my fucking case for Mean Girls. I'm going to try and save the spoilers until the very end of it. But you're going to get spoiled with Mean Girls. So you should really, really watch the movie. Really. I am dead fucking serious. This is a show about sincerity today. And I am dead serious that you should watch Mean Girls. And Faster Pussycat, if you saw the trailer, it already spoiled you.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we'll spoil Faster Pussycat. It's still possible. So if you don't want to be spoiled, use the chapters. They are in your, let's count it off. QuickTime, they're in your QuickTime, right inside it. They're in your iTunes, they're in your iPod. Are they in your Zune?
They aren't.
That was a piece of punctuation in there.
Yeah.
They're not in your Zune, but you could probably fumble around in the lyric section and figure out. I'm guessing about halfway through the show, we'll start talking about Faster Pussycat.
Makes sense.
But that's it. You've been warned. It's time to do this. So I do want to make the case for Mean Girls. I want to just talk to you a little bit about this first, because this was something that you saw before I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through, we talked about it very briefly on the show. We talked about both of these films on the show before when we actually found them. But I went through a brief period where I was going through different genres and trying to find the gems of each of these genres. And I won't bore you with, one, I won't bore you, and two, we may have this genre discussion at another point. So we won't go over which ones now. But the teen genre was really interesting to me because teen movies, I'm going to go beyond teen comedy. I'm going to say broader. Teen movies in general. They suck. They're terrible.
All of them.
There is a ton of them, and they're all really awful. When I saw 10 Things I Hate About You, it does this kind of Shakespeare thing, and it's sort of hip, and Heath Ledger and whatever. So that one was all right, and I thought I had reached the pinnacle. But then I saw Mean Girls, which is leagues beyond other teen films. Leagues beyond.
Well, because 10 Things I Hate About You, like you said, it seems like it's the best, but that's because you're kind of cutting yourself off at the knees.
Yep.
You're settling for, well, I suppose this is as good as it's going to get in this shitty genre.
So I think you'll agree with me here, but if you can look at Mean Girls as a teen film, I would submit to you that I would not change a thing about this movie.
Nothing.
When you watch Mean Girls and you watch it with Faster Pussycat, you don't watch it back to back with The Breakfast Club or another
Sleepover.
bullshit. Yeah, thank you. 16 Candles. You start to think, Mean Girls, yeah, back to back with Pussycat or another real film, not a bullshit teen film. There are things I would change about it. I don't like the way the film looks. It's treated with a certain air. There's various things throughout the film that don't put it in line with other artistically satisfying film. The reason you kind of make that leap is because you identify that Mean Girls is a great film and you wish it would do things to give it more independence. I would say, however, that it needs to remain within the teen genre. And that's why I would say to you that it is a perfect film. Every single thing I would change about the film would place it outside of the teen genre. So this entire group of films would no longer have this champion. We would go back to 10 Things I Hate About You being the best that they could possibly achieve. This is a movie that slaps all of those other movies in the face, that lets you know that, hey, there's so much squandered potential here. It's not the genre itself that's holding all of these films back. They could do something better, but they don't. They don't feel that they have to in order to sell themselves.
Right. They basically,
they give up.
I know we bring this up a lot, but it's almost an exploitative tactic where they go, if teens come to the movie, it doesn't need to be rewarding for anybody.
And if Mean Girls teaches us anything, it's that is not the case. So we start with this outsider perspective. This script is probably my favorite thing about Mean Girls, although I think because the script is so good, it makes all of the other elements so good. The script is written with so much precision that I actually love Lindsay Lohan. Mm-hmm. It's a problem that the film is giving
This is
me.
Lindsay Lohan with tits. We have to.
Do you think that distinction is why I love Lindsay Lohan?
She's much hotter in this film than she is now.
I just feel like it's written in a way where you can't possibly not like her or her character. She's transparent as this character. I mean, you don't see Lindsay Lohan, teen fucking star in this film. You see this poor girl who was raised in Africa by these zoologist parents. That whole idea, the whole zoological aspect of the film, if you will you?
Oh, I will. The other thing that's really funny about that is her parents are played by Neil Flynn and Anna Gasteyer, who are some of the most off-the-wall odd comedians.
Right.
So just seeing them around, if you know any of their outside work, just seeing them around as parents just lets you know how awkward her life must have been.
Right, how they don't blend in with the other parents. They blend in with society less than she does. But the perspective does something really, really interesting in that it allows the film to comment on how ridiculous, absurd, really, and tyrannical high school is from the perspective of an outsider. This is something that you and I can look back at high school now and kind of think, how did they get away with that? Man, the first time you go to college, for the people who do go to college, which is not something Double Feature is ever going to urge anyone to do, you can fucking order a pizza to your classroom. You can get up and leave in the middle. You don't have to go to school. That's what school should be. If you're really interested in being in class, then you go. And you know what? If you need to take a leak, you shouldn't have to raise your hand and get permission. A teacher, a person, a human being should never be able to deny you permission to use a restroom.
Right.
So the film wants to talk about these absurdities of high school, and they want to talk about them right away. There's a couple different methods to presenting that outsider perspective that have been used in other films. I always think about what's become, the entire genre really has become a cliche. It was even lampooned on South Park. The teacher coming in to instruct a group of inner city children, I have to reach these
right
kids.
Well, they did it in South Park. It was a parody of Stand and Deliver. It's a weird inner city youth film that came out in the 90s.
And we could have had the same conversations about high school if we just want to look at those themes by Tina Fey's character could have come in as someone who was as someone who was a zoologist from Africa and come in here, and we could have still had the commentary about the animal kingdom, which we'll get to. We could have still dealt with how the school system is different, but we can't get into the minds of the students because there's always that layer of detachment between, they're on a different level socially. We can't talk about the social structure of the student body from within the student body if we're dealing with a teacher. So how do we have both the conversation about the absurdity of high school and also the conversation about the social structure? We do that by introducing a student who's been homeschooled. That's one of those things that has a dual purpose, which is a lot of why I say this is a very precisely written film. It's a relatively short film that covers a lot because many different facets of the film comment on 2 or 3 different things at once. To get even more into the social structure, we use that same mechanism when her character infiltrates the plastics. Once again, she's adapted to school. People have accepted that she's not just the weird kid from Africa, although that's still a problem throughout the whole film. And now we're going to get even deeper into the social hierarchy by her infiltrating a group. She's going to become like the inside man.
So yeah, essentially what happens is she infiltrates who are, I guess, the highest level of social power in this high school.
Well, it's funny when you look at the different cliques, and I think the cliques are really universal. There's a couple that probably assume within their group. But yeah, I think the plastics think they're the highest class.
Right. The leader of the Plastics is played by Rachel McAdams, who went on to do some actual films, like beyond Mean Girls. Not that Mean Girls isn't a film.
Yeah, don't you dare.
But she
I
went
will
on.
Go Animal Kingdom on your
She went on to do films that our audience may have actually seen.
Sure.
Without going into just making.
Oh, you mean films that people other than the two of us realize are amazing?
Exactly.
Got it.
So what ends up happening as soon as Rachel McAdams' character is introduced is you just get this conniving thing between all these girls and between all this lying, and it just pisses you off.
Yeah, sure.
You just get angrier because the problems never get solved. They keep getting twisted and they keep snowballing, and certain people are trying. I mean, it becomes this thing where all these girls, it makes you hate girls in high school.
Yeah.
And everything turns really animalistic. It's almost the alpha male parallel, but for women.
Sure, it's leader of the pack.
Right.
And that's to get back to what I was talking about, her coming from Africa and her being homeschooled. If this just threw us right into high school and we just met her as a day-to-day average teenager, we might get lost in the gossip,
Sure.
in the cliques. We wouldn't be able to realize how jarring all of that stuff is. We come in with her from Africa, so we're looking at all of this stuff as just as absurd as she thinks it is when she starts.
Right.
So let's talk about that Africa stuff. Let's talk about the animal kingdom a little bit.
So there's some great scenes in here where it's kind of it's LOHAN vision.
Yeah.
Where she sees people as, you know, as her homeland. Apparently, okay, so I'm gonna be really honest, and I kind of think it's a little offensive that her coming from Africa means she's seen animals in the savannah behaving around a watering hole.
Does that bother you?
I find it offensive because I honestly don't feel like when you live in Africa, you just happen to see wildebeests getting eaten by crocodiles around the watering hole.
Well, okay, I would agree with you completely. But her parents are zoologists, so
That's
it's not
true.
just
Okay.
It's not just that
so
she was
there is that extra layer.
well, and plus she's homeschooled. So what do you
Right.
think her parents are teaching her about? They're
That's
teaching
true.
her about crazy
Okay.
animals.
Okay, fair enough. So she see the one scene that the first time it really happens is when she's at the mall and there's the fountain, because
Yeah.
every motherfucking mall
Yep.
on the planet has a fountain.
You can't talk about high school cliques without going to the mall.
She sees all these people behaving like animals around the watering hole, and there's this weird kind of foreshadowing scene where one girl tackles another girl monkey
Sure.
thing into the fountain.
Girl monkey thing, that's a good
And
way to
that comes
describe
back
that.
later when Rachel McAdams first delivers her bitchiness
Right.
about stealing her boyfriend and teasing. She kind of dangles the meat in front of
absolutely.
Lindsay Lohan, and Lindsay Lohan just snaps and attacks her, and everybody turns into screeching animals while
Yeah.
Lindsay Lohan just rips her apart. And
Right.
it's true. And it makes sense because that's real. It's a jungle in this
Sure.
high school, and these girls are all evil animals.
Well, through the entire film, there's a subtle commentary about the animal kingdom, or at least a more subtle commentary. And there are brief moments where you need that visual brutality in case you're not quite picking up on what she's saying, or it's not even that you don't pick up on it because she's explaining it directly to you.
It's that you don't realize the reality.
Yeah, you get lost in what she's saying. You just think, oh yeah, she's from Africa, she's making those parallels. But when you actually see an entire pack of teenagers assault each other like this, savagely try and rip each other apart, that really cements that concept for you. That's not something you're going to soon forget. You know, but even when we don't see that, it's a constant metaphor. She's talking about sucking the venomous poison out, and in each new wave of the story, there's another comparison to a facet of the animal kingdom. I think it's fair to say this film is brutal beyond the animal kingdom stuff, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of well, there's a few really slapstick scenes
Sure.
that you would think maybe would give you a little bit of padding for what eventually ends up happening. But girls just start getting hit by buses
Yeah, right.
in the end of this film. I think a total of 4 girls
Yes.
get hit by buses.
Although one is as a dark joke,
Right.
and not necessarily.
Well, the other one, it seems like that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
The first time you see a character get hit by a bus, she gets hit by the bus, and you kind of, I mean, I've seen it in films before. I don't think I can name any. But you see, you know, characters' ideal fantasy of that's where they got hit by a train and died.
Well,
But
also,
not really.
Lindsay Lohan's character didn't really jump over the table and savagely rip a woman
exactly.
apart.
So you kind of think it's going to be one of those, but
Yeah.
she didn't really get hit by a bus. I just wish she did.
Right.
But instead, Lindsay Lohan goes, and that's how she died. No, just kidding. She did get really hurt, though.
It's this dark moment that kind of awakens you to the fact that this film is doing something different, if you didn't realize it already.
Well, it shows you that the film is more than just a teen-oriented flick.
Right.
It's got teen elements and it appeals to a younger audience, but also coming from an adult perspective, that's where the outsider thing really plays in.
As an adult, you can relate to a girl getting hit by a bus as a serious piece of drama, whereas maybe sitting in a cafeteria, you weren't connecting those dots as well. It's not just the gossip and the cliques that the film's commenting on. You know what I really like is the way it talks about religion. It bashes religion without really focusing on religion. I would never say that religion is a focal point of Mean Girls, right?
No, I wouldn't even say that it's any point of
It's
the
barely on the
story.
radar.
Yeah, it's just kind of one of those, it's something where the filmmakers kind of go, well, religion is stupid, so if that happens to come up during these
Sure,
people's
sure.
lives, we should make sure that we mention that it's stupid.
Yeah, you know, this is something that I wish all films would do. It's showing you that Mean Girls is just going to call things like it sees it. Something we kind of try and do with our show. We're not a show about skepticism, for instance, but skeptical themes come up all the time. When we see some of that and we can incorporate it in our show, it's a way of getting people who otherwise may not have been interested in, let's say, skepticism, to kind of think about that. Mean Girls isn't another failure of the genre, let's say Saved. That's a film with very, very overt religious commentary that probably gets it all wrong.
Yeah, it does.
And I like how in one or two sentences, Mean Girls can clear up all of the wrongdoing of a film like Saved. Abstinence is a theme that it hits on a little bit more. Abstinence is another one of those pieces of precise script writing where it has a dual purpose. You know, we see the gym teacher giving that abstinence speech in the beginning. Don't have sex or you'll die, which is really how abstinence is taught in public schools, and I fucking hate it. But then he can't even spell chlamydia. He's clearly a figure to be mocked. And then he's fucking his students, several of the students.
Well, the Asian ones.
So it accomplishes these two great different things of talking about sexual education in public school, but also talking about the pure hypocrisy of these teachers. The sex ed teacher is the one fucking the students. In a movie where we have to like the principal, we have to like Tina Fey's character, there's still room to keep going back to those themes of these tyrants that are telling you can't fucking use the public restroom, and then not listening to the very tenets that they're trying to preach to you, this time being abstinence. So it's weird, we've talked about all of these different things, and none of them are really the plot of the film.
Well, none of them, that's part of what makes Mean Girls so great, is that the film has a very clear direction that it's going, but it's not afraid to kind of stick its arms out and just scoop up everything as we're headed to the final structure.
I think one of the overall themes is about becoming everything you hate. And I feel like the film speaks very specifically about why you don't want to pretend to be something that you're not. You know, her character is trying to infiltrate this group, and in infiltrating the group, and that's the most direct message, is that she has unwillingly almost become part of that group. She has been playing under that disguise for so long that she becomes the very thing she was mocking, the reason she was there in the first place.
Well, that goes with anything. The more you try to pretend to be something, the more, especially if you're immersed in it, if you're submitted to the thing that you're trying to portray, think of it as acting. If you're submitted to that thing for any extended period of time, you start to pick up on more nuance. You start to pick up on the things that a person from an outside perspective would never understand or even notice.
At the risk of losing yourself.
Exactly. And eventually, if you're submerged in that, you're going to start picking up on the nuance. And then in the interest of maintaining your kind of new persona, you're going to have to start mimicking the nuance. And eventually you forget that the nuance was ever there.
Right.
Because it's become a part of you.
The Bob Dylan thing, fear not, I become my enemy in the instant that I preach, I believe is probably me butchering some Bob Dylan on double feature. We should just stick to the constant theme we always hit on this show of ends justify the means, because that's an area I'm comfortable talking about. She goes into this with the idea that we're just doing this for fun. We're going to do it to expose them. But she has to make the decision at that point. Here's a group of girls pretending to be something that they're not, these fake personalities. Why don't I pretend to be what I'm not to expose them? So the film is giving you a very good case study, a cautionary tale of what can happen when you take that shortcut. It's a theme I don't want to talk about too much because the film is really direct about it. So I think if you see the film, you've heard all it needs to say about that. I guess we can end our conversation about Mean Girls by patting ourselves on the back, as we should do on our final episode. I think this is the perfect way to end year 2. Not only because Mean Girls takes place in Evanston, which for people who don't know, and why would you? It's fucking Evanston, Illinois.
Evanston is actually Chicago.
Yeah, Evanston is how far from our studio, right? We could walk there almost.
I think it's about 3 miles.
Yeah.
We could walk there on a nice sunny day.
We're closer to Evanston right now than we are to the Loop, than we are to downtown Chicago, where you think about,
Willis Tower.
Willis Tower, yeah, and the Trump Tower now in Grant Park, Lollapalooza, the heart of the city. Evanston is basically this little bullshit suburb, or maybe the last neighborhood of Chicago, or the first suburb outside.
In the Venn diagram of Chicago and Chicagoland, it is the only place besides, I guess, Oak Park that kind of falls in between the two circles.
Yeah, it's the kind of place you find a coin collecting shop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of quiet. It's middle America, but it's eerie because it's so close to your home. It's dangerously close to the city. That's not even what I was talking about. What I was talking about is something that you may have noticed, especially as we close out the year. We've seen this almost inevitable trend towards humanism on our show. It seems to be coming up in film after film, especially in recent months.
Right.
Mean Girls is a perfect example of this. We have you know what I love is the workshop at the end that Tina Fey's character tries to have.
Right.
Or really that Tim Meadows' character tries to have before handing it off to Tina Fey's character. Which has probably some of the worst apologies I think I've ever seen in a film. I love those.
Well, Lacey Chabert's apology is the one where she says she's sorry she's so great or so beautiful or something.
Right, yeah. Well, it's another wonderful mechanism for the film because it's the point where the film itself needs a resolution. So we've gathered all the characters into the gym and we're telling them, God damn it, the film's almost over, we need to have a resolution. But the characters themselves aren't actually ready for that resolution. So they're still just as sarcastic and cynical towards one another as you would naturally be in that place. I think it's a good exercise for them, but they still have a ways to go. They eventually reach the conclusions for themselves. And you get that great bittersweet song by Orbital, the one that I think it first appeared on the Mortal Kombat soundtrack. And the film chooses not to end in a warm and fuzzy way. You get resolution without being warm and fuzzy. It's not, everyone's going to be okay. Instead, it's just we, the characters, are okay. We had to go through what's essentially a learning experience for them. They developed as characters, but that doesn't mean this isn't going to be a problem. They had a problem and they worked through that. But the film still reminds us that those cliques will continue. We look at the new incoming freshmen, at the new plastics. This is a vicious cycle that will exist basically forever because it's part of human nature.
It's the circle of life.
It's the circle of life, right? It's that parallel between animal nature and human nature. It's always going to exist. This isn't a story about eradicating that problem.
It's just a story about people getting through it.
So if humanism made Mean Girls an inevitable film for this show, I think the fact that we have a show makes Faster Pussycat an inevitable film.
That's almost where the show came from.
So I will lay it on here one more time with punctuation. The title of the film is Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill. I believe that's a comma and 3, no less than 3 exclamation points. This is a Russ Meyer film, and we purposely did another Russ Meyer film earlier when we did Up and The Haunted World of El Super Bisto, which, funny enough, was another appearance of both
Varla.
Yeah, both Tura Satana and the character of Varla. So we talked a lot about who Russ Meyer is, sort of the idea of behind his films, how he got to be the odd character of cinema that he did. And I don't really want to repeat that stuff. If you want a good
primer on Russ Meyer,
I think Up is perfect for that because we barely talked about the film at all.
Yeah, well, there's not a whole lot to talk about.
And we didn't really spoil it either. So you don't even really need to see Up. Just go back and listen to that as an extended piece of a conversation about Russ Meyer. What I think makes Faster Pussycat interesting about Russ is how much it says about him without being really anything like his other films. Yeah. I mean, doesn't this one seem to stand out to you?
Yeah, well, I feel like this film is kind of the mainstream pop rock of Russ Meyer's career, whereas everything else is just jazz and completely unapproachable and scary.
Sure, that's how I would describe Up. I think that's pretty apt.
Another thing that's different about this film comparatively to all the others, aside from the kind of cult appeal that it can actually garner, is that there's no nudity in the entire film, which is way different, especially compared to Up. Up is, we talked about it.
No one wears clothes anywhere in Up.
Nobody wears clothes.
Well, that's why I think this is interesting to look at as a second piece of that conversation rather than starting. Maybe it's a good place to start with Russ Meyer stuff. I don't know. I can't really perform that experiment backwards, I guess. We talked on Up about how nudity is almost treated as costume. I think I compared it to drag. I mean, it's just something that the characters wear. There is much nudity as there anything else, and it's completely natural. Above anything else, the characters feel fine running around naked. In a Russ Meyer film, no one in the town walks by and says, look at all those naked people. This isn't a John Waters film where everyone is offended. Everyone in Russ Meyer world is completely comfortable with nudity and sexuality. It's almost as if he made a film where he wasn't aware that in the outside world, that wasn't okay. That wasn't approachable. I wouldn't even be surprised to see that Russ Meyer shot his films while naked himself.
I always imagine that he's naked or masturbating.
But I do think it's intentional. I think that's part of the world he wanted to build. This isn't pornography for him. We talked about how Russ Meyer almost detested pornography, which is ironic considering that he is what a lot of people consider
a total sleazebag.
What a lot of people call the grandfather of porn.
Right.
He wanted to create a world where it was fun for people to be naked, where that was treated as not really being a taboo. And despite its lack of nudity, I think Faster Pussycat is a good example of that. Especially if you know Russ's other stuff, you almost go into Faster Pussycat. I mean, maybe even if you don't, you expect people to be naked in a very exploitative way. You expect it to be about nudity and sexuality. It's about these women. It's about how sexual they are, but without actually giving you any of that nudity. So maybe it is a good first Meyer film to go to because you understand the world that he's trying to build of this natural sexuality, of these strong women, of the feministic themes, without actually showing that nudity to the audience. You get an idea that it's okay for all three of these women. They're go-go dancers, I guess, and they're all showering together and none of that bothers anybody. The old man, talks about it a little bit, but it's not like he's totally thrown off. And in being normal, the audience doesn't see it. It's just not part of the film.
Right.
So if we're really going to get into this film, we have to talk about the ladies. But first, let's talk about Stuart Lancaster.
Wow, that was the most exploitative thing our show may have ever done.
We'll get to the ladies.
Let's talk about the ladies, but first, this old crippled man.
So believe it or not, we've seen Stuart Lancaster on the show before. You get huge bonus points if you know this one.
All right, me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Seeing something weird? Something with houses?
It's got houses.
Really?
Yeah.
Was he in,
very utilitarian houses?
Was it Edward Scissorhands?
You're good at this. Yeah.
I recognize his face or something.
Someone Burton picked up in both Edward Scissorhands and in Batman Returns.
Okay.
But before that, he played a part in a lot of Russ Meyer films. He did Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens, not to be confused with...
Beyond the Valley of the Dolls?
Yeah. Also appeared in Super Vixens, in Good Morning and Goodbye, The 7 Minutes. He was in Mudhoney, which is another early awesome Russ Meyer film. But he shows up a lot. What's interesting about the girls is they aren't exactly Russ Meyer regulars.
Teresa Tana is this weird kind of...
fixture, really.
It's that's a really good... It's a fixture of the film, and...
So she plays Varla.
She's Varla. She's the main character. She has the Betty Page haircut,
right.
And she's totally stacked from the shoulders down.
Right.
But you and I were having this conversation during the film. It was kind of it was almost a confession of sorts.
Yeah.
Where both of us having declared so much love for this film and everything about it, we both kind of confessed to each other that we didn't think Varla was in the least bit attractive.
Part of her role, you have to understand. This isn't a matter of taste. You have to know that she is the hottest. She is the leader. She is the strongest of the go-go dancers.
And it's weird because her toughness and strength perpetuates out of the screen to guilting you, even if you don't agree, into thinking that she's the hottest one.
Well, and
if you're interested in any of the other girls, you feel like you can't say it because you don't want her to beat the shit out of you.
You're right. It does extend beyond the screen. You talk to other people about Faster Pussycat, and you all sort of have this conversation about how hot Varla is and what a great character that is. And a great character, yes. But I do feel like a lot of people just need to agree that she is a hot super vixen, really. You nailed it with the Betty Page thing. I mean, I don't get Betty Page either. So maybe this is a matter of taste, and who gives a shit about our matter of taste in women? But Tura showed up first in a Billy Wilder movie. We talked about her on Super Beasto. Not an actor that appeared in a lot of Russ Meyer stuff, and indeed not an actor that appeared in a lot of films. The same's the case with Laurie Williams. Only a handful of films in her life, never again with Russ Meyer. Laurie plays Billie, who I like to call Boom Boom in the film.
She gets called Boom Boom once, and that just sticks better.
You latch onto it. Part of the problem is that Boom Boom is sexier than the name Billie, and no one is allowed to be sexier than Varla.
Mm-hmm.
Our favorite, though, and really a fan favorite, I think this is pretty universal, is Haji.
Yeah.
We like Haji. So this is this Canadian actor. This is kind of a stage name. Her real name, or before it was changed, I don't know if she actually changed her name, but she's always credited as Haji. Her name was originally Barbarella Catton. Catton?
Yeah.
It's French, right?
It could be. I mean, if she's from
Quebec, French Canada.
Yeah, she's French Canadian. Yeah, the thing about Haji in this film and that she plays Rosie in the film is she's easily the most intense, and she's easily the one who is most seriously invested in what's going on.
Yeah, right.
Not to mention she's the hottest, and she's foreign. Don't tell Varla I said that. But she's also the only one who really seems to not want to dick around. She's in this to get the money and go. There's kind of a weird air of almost butch lesbianism about her.
Right.
Because she's also the only character that never flirts with any of the three men.
She's too focused in on the task at hand.
She's, to go back to when we did JCVD and Bronson, she's the renegade partner that's in it, and she's going to take over. It just so happens that the leader of the pack is somebody that you can't overtake.
Sure.
Even if the leader is going the complete wrong direction with the process of the goal.
Haji's great because she's not only a fan favorite for this film, but for a lot of exploitation stuff. She's had a pretty lengthy career, especially with Russ Meyer. You know, she was in Super Vixens, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, Motorcycle, Good Morning, and Goodbye Again. She was also in this movie Bigfoot, this really, really wonderful, terrible old movie Bigfoot. I love the tagline was Bigfoot breeds with anything.
That tells me exactly what goes on in that film.
And all three of these characters play into the role of feminism, another big theme that Russ hits on all the time in pretty much all of his movies.
Sure.
We're going to keep going back to Up just because we've covered it on the show, and that's the only thing, if any other movies, I'm going to assume people have seen out of Russ Meyer's stuff. We talked about how the feminism was portrayed in that movie, strong female characters that often had to defend their male counterparts. That's not the case in Faster Pussycat.
No, not at all. In this film, first off, you get this really strong-armed image of these women.
Mm-hmm.
They fucking Cypress Hill style, how I could just kill a man. For some reason, they don't really explain why. And this image of these just take no prisoners, stay out of my fucking way women.
Criminals, outlaws.
Yeah, is what pushes the film, oddly. And they end up in a situation where it is three strong women who are up against a
guy in a wheelchair.
Guy
who's a little slow.
Right. And then a little wimpy...
A character who's probably the best hope for the group, but still is easily brushed aside.
Somebody who is so much of a family man that it blinds him from simple survival instincts.
Sure.
That is his character flaw.
Well, and I think that's part of the more mainstream success of Faster Pussycat. We call it mainstream only in comparison to Russ's other stuff, but why people have latched onto this. These aren't the most complicated feministic roles, but they are definitely the most memorable because of their simplicity.
Right.
They're strong women brutalizing crippled men.
And they want money.
Nothing's going to get in their way. That's it. That's all there is to it.
Apparently, they're a bunch of go-go dancers who drive cars, separate cars. That's one of my favorite aspects of the film, is that they're these three women who go everywhere together, but they all drive separately.
Well, that's because they're so into their automobiles.
Right.
That's part of their characters. They need to have their own cars. They can't travel.
They're independent women.
Gas wasn't as expensive then. You could afford to drive around in 3 cars.
That's true.
Well, that's a key component of roadsploitation.
Right.
You have to love your motorcycle. You have to love your car. Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda could have ridden on the same motorcycle, but they had their own bikes.
Right. Well, but then again, we see some weird. This is an absolutely opposite role for a female in Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, where they ride in the same car because she is the sexploitation element. It's like in Faster Pussycat, it's a combination of different types of exploitation. It's not just roadsploitation.
Right.
It's not just sexploitation.
Sure.
It's not just, I don't know what the name for exploitation when it's just people fighting other people.
Sure.
But it's not just that
Chopsploitation.
Right.
No, that's not it, because chopsploitation's a real thing.
It's just, I mean, that's just general exploitation, really.
Right.
Violence is the first and primary aspect of most exploitation. And this film is a combination of all three. It has really strong aspects. It has a long, it's not a zoom because it's the character moving towards the camera, but you just get a fucking vagina shot.
It's a crotch shot, yeah.
It's fantastic.
Another moment from the trailer.
Sure, but one of the strongest moments in the carsploitation aspect is the fact that they're using whatever these ambiguous vehicles that they seem to like to drive.
Well, that's another funny thing about the film is roadsploitation. You know what they're driving the entire time. That becomes part of the
1970
iconography.
white Dodge Challenger.
Yeah, you don't know what the cars are that they're driving. The roadsploitation aspect just serves the sexploitation aspect. You don't get to see the characters being naked all the time. That's not why they're sexy. They're sexy because they drive muscle cars through the desert
with muscle cars.
Yeah, because they're weapons. The movie almost feels like a long trailer. We see all of our beats from the story in the trailer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the trailer is another key point in exploitation. It's 1 minute and 30 seconds long.
Right. We don't talk about the exploitation trailers enough on this show, but that's almost more important than the films themselves.
That's what gets you there. That's the purpose.
Right.
And the trailer for Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, aside from this, my favorite part of the trailer is the last 20 seconds of narration,
Right.
where the narrator just starts listing all the different ways that they hit each other,
Right.
or whether or not they're sand jousting, which I'll let you decide.
I feel like that's equally rivaled by the opening of the trailer, though, where they tell anyone with any sort of taste to basically not talk during this trailer
Right.
that will offend you.
Exactly. This trailer is an awesome collection of the best lines from the film. It's a collection of more sexy dancing than we get throughout the whole film.
Right.
The trailer is honestly, it's where you find out they're go-go dancers.
Right.
Because that's not actually in the movie.
Right. You get about 10 seconds of that at
Right.
the beginning. It's the opening not even the opening credits. There's more go-go dancing in the trailer than in the film itself.
Right. But the trailer is every iconic line from the film, with the exception of I never try anything,
Right.
I just do it. It seems like the trailer was almost cut before the film was made.
Yeah, as if they went out and filmed the trailer and then decided they need to put things in between the
Right.
different points in the story. But you know that's not the case because the plot of Faster Pussycat is so fucking contrived.
Exactly.
That had they made the trailer first, what would you do right after you make the trailer? I hand you this trailer and it just shows you scene after scene. The first thing you ask yourself, right, is, okay, how do they get from scene to scene? Isn't that the remaining question
Right,
after you see the
exactly.
trailer?
It's how does all of this fit in a story?
Sure. And we don't actually know once you watch
there
the
is
film.
no answer.
Why does anything happen in this
It's
movie?
just because it's a bunch of renegades doing what they want to do. They kill a guy for, I guess they're trying to tell you there's a reason, but they kill a man for no
There's
reason.
a disagreement.
That ends up forwarding a plot. They take
Okay,
a girl.
but even before the renegades, that guy just shows up and asks them about time trials. What the
Yeah.
fuck is he doing there?
I don't know. I guess it's the best strip of land for racing.
I mean, maybe back in the 60s, people really just drove around in the desert
Right.
and did time trials.
Well, the other thing that's really strange is they kill this guy and take his girlfriend hostage. These are
Right.
3 heterosexual women
Uh-huh.
who seemingly, I guess they're looking for trouble. They have to be. Why would you take a young girl hostage after killing her boyfriend? In the middle of the desert, where else would you... Okay, hypothetical situation.
Sure.
You kill a man, his girlfriend is there, and you're in the middle of the fucking desert. Where better could you leave her?
Yeah, I know, right? They drag her with. Why not just leave her in the desert? I guess because she would still have the car.
Well, no. The real answer is because that's the driving point for the rest of the film somehow.
Right.
Somehow either it's a
Well, she gets away. I mean, that's what they bring her somewhere. They talk for a little bit about sexy dialogue, and then she runs away and they have to chase her.
Sure.
They bring her back. They capture her. We have some more weird exchanges of dialogue. She runs away some more. That's the entire plot of the film.
The honest role of her in the film is to stop characters from fucking. Did
Yeah.
you notice this?
Yeah, she's the cock block
Anytime
of the
someone's
film.
going to fuck,
Sure.
somebody says, "Oh, she ran away," and fucking
Gotta go get her
immediately
again.
halts.
Yes.
and you have to go catch the girl again.
Maybe other Russ Meyer films could have used. I would have really enjoyed if this girl made it out of the film and just traveled between different Russ Meyer films.
Yeah.
It would be a weird, almost a Jersey trilogy kind of thing where she connects each film and no longer does Russ Meyer ever need a plot. All of the characters in every film just chase this girl around.
Right. There's just a fuck runner going through every Russ Meyer film.
The other thing I love about the trailer is that it promises you over and over. First, it tells you it's 90 seconds long. So please sit down and enjoy this for 90 seconds. But then it promises you over and over that you will have a good time.
Yeah.
Please see this movie. Really, you'll have a great time. It's going to be an excellent night. Bring your girlfriend with. Buy some popcorn. Both of you will have a lot of fun. You will score points for taking your friends to this film.
It's kind of like it's saying, hey, here's a freebie for self-improvement.
Yeah.
Go see Faster Pussycat Kill Kill.
Do you feel like the trailer's misleading? Because all of the stuff the trailer promises you, it does appear in the film. It's not the exploitation icon I constantly go back to of, women on Mars and women in spacesuits, and you watch the film and they never actually go into space. You really do get the unladylike karate chops. You get the sandboxing. You get fast cars. But you only get as much as is in the trailer.
It's not that it's misleading. It's almost, and we talked about it in the intro to the show. The trailer spoils the film.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Once you watch the trailer, that's all you get.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they condense the film into 90 seconds, and not only does that contain enough to make you want to go see the film. No, that's it. That's all it contains.
We could have done this entire conversation today. Everything we've said, all you need to see is the trailer. I don't think that's knocking the film. I think that's something amazing about the trailer.
Sure.
They do not. This is a trailer that falls under everything people hate about trailers today. It tells you the entire so-called plot of the film. It gives away all of the best parts of the film. It gives away all the jokes of the film. After you've seen this trailer, you walk away going, oh, well, I don't even need to see the movie. You know, the thing people say about trailers. However, it also leads you to the film. Today's trailers, you watch a trailer today that explains everything to you, and you think to yourself, a lot of people really do. I don't need to see the film. We don't ever fucking think that, but a lot of people do. I'm sure you can audibly hear people mutter that to themselves when you're in a theater.
I wonder how that's going to end.
Almost to the point where they need to put extra twists in movies so you can't figure them out from the trailers. Faster Pussycat, on the other hand, really does convince you. I challenge you right now. If you have not seen Faster Pussycat, go look up the trailer. You'll watch the film.
Sure.
You'll watch the film, even though we've told you you'll get nothing more than the trailer. You will still watch the film thinking, that can't be right. And then you'll see all your favorite scenes from the trailer in the movie, and that'll be it.
Yep.
Fucking brilliant marketing. The best piece of exploitation of all time.
You'll have a blast.
What the trailer doesn't tell you that the film does, the only piece you really get from seeing the film that you don't necessarily know from the trailer, is how fucking sincere this movie is.
Right.
You can talk about this a lot with Russ Meyer's stuff. Even when characters are winking at the camera, it's pretty sincere. But Faster Pussycat is one of the most sincere films, right up there with Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is weird because it's almost trying to be funny, but it doesn't know how serious it is. Faster Pussycat is not ironic. There is nothing satirical about Faster Pussycat. It has jokes in it, but it is dead serious. These women time trials are very important to them, okay? The entire idea of time trials versus live races, this is a life or death conversation that caused them to murder a man. They take a hostage, they go to steal this old cripple man's money, they run him down with a car, all fucking serious. That is something I really miss from movies. It's something you can't really do with an exploitation callback anymore because you kind of have to do that tongue-in-cheek thing.
Well, we talked about it when we did Black Dynamite, how there's just a logical progression where you have to show that you realize that they were campy.
Right.
In the 70s, you didn't have to.
Yeah.
In the 70s, the charm of the film was everybody believing it because then you were, as an audience member, able to clench your fist and go, yes, badass motherfucker.
Right.
And
it ruins part of that escapism now when the film is just watching itself with you.
Sure.
It's not as much of a night out experience. You can't go there and all mutually pretend to almost role play.
Yeah.
You all sit down in front of everybody goes to Faster Pussycat, sits down, and for an hour and 20 minutes
acts like it's as good as it thinks it is.
Yeah, exactly. And even more so, as important as life or death scenarios. Above all, as sincere. I just want to make a call for the death of irony, first of all. Fuck you, irony. And the return of sincerity to movies. I'm feeling a year 3 theme coming on here. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to find enough films that do that.
No way in hell.
Send us your goddamn sincere films. We have a Gmail address, doublefeatureshow@gmail.com. We also have a website where you can look up a bunch of stuff. That address is doublefeatureshow.com. Leave us a review on iTunes. Very important.
Yeah.
But even more important, the most important, actually, is Frank. We got another donation this week from another Frank, a different Frank from last time on the show. You know what happened is everybody tunes out this part. They go, yeah, donations, don't care. But Frank heard his name, and he decided that he was going to send us some goddamn money. Thank you, Frank. As I mentioned, this is crunch time for us. So Frank is going to get the job title of the most important man. If you want to donate, it's really easy. Go to donate.doublefeatureshow.com, and we actually have options on there for people who want to donate and don't even have any money. It's that fucking easy. With an entire year ahead of us, we've been renewed for a 3rd season. Fancy that. As an independent production, we have decided to go ahead with another, I believe we've been renewed for 10 years. 10 years of double
something
feature.
Like that, yeah.
So we have to do that wonderful thing we did last year, and the thing we will end every year of double feature with. A long-winded rant about all of the films that we saw. Or a series, I guess of long-winded rants. So for people who weren't around this time last year, because I expect that no one was around this time last year, what do we do with this year-end recap, which we will be doing next week?
Basically what we do is we talk about films we loved, talk about films we hated, talk about films we changed our minds on throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
So
what you're telling me is for one day a year, we put aside being a pretentious film discussion show, and we become a fucking bullshit review show.
It's a clip show. It's a clip show. We look back,
It's
we
not
laugh.
a clip show. Don't tell people that because it's not a clip show for one, because I don't want to dig through all our episodes and find good clips. It's easier for me to just come in the studio and just talk to you for 2 hours.
Yeah. And we go back, we laugh, we cry, we read some of the better emails that y'all have sent over the course of the year, and that's it. We're never going to read them again until 1 year from next week.
Yeah, you could try and send us an email now, but it probably won't make it on the show. You'll notice we get a ton of emails, first of all, but you'll notice we never read them on the show ever, unless they're incredible, and even the incredible ones we want to save. So we will randomly go through a bunch of questions on the show. This is the other thing I hate, right, is that we do this show and we try and keep things about discussions of the films without, personal opinions ever mattering. However, our year-end recap from last year is still one of the highest listened to shows, one of the highest downloaded shows. People love when we pretend to be fucking critics. The other reason they probably love it is because it's spoiler-free. Yeah. We're going to do the whole thing without any spoilers, so you don't actually need to come to the table having done any homework this week.
Well, we do.
Yeah, we have our hands full. People are kind of lonely, though. They have no movies to watch this. What are they going to do with their time?
Well, I guess you could go back through the annals of this year and pick out all the ones that you cheated and listen to the fucking show without watching the fucking film.
Okay, so let's do this. Which movies do you think people did not pay any attention to?
Well, I'm guessing...
Should I start with Mean Girls?
Yeah. We'll start with Mean Girls.
Go back and actually goddamn watch Mean Girls.
Another thing, watch Blair Witch again. I know you saw it in 1995. That doesn't fucking count.
Yeah.
Rewatch Blair Witch.
We hit on Super Beasto, but I think if you enjoyed anything we talked about today, you'll probably get a kick out of that.
And if you're still feeling the exploitation shit, watch Black Dynamite, you racist bastard.
I'm going to guess nobody saw Lawnmower Man either. So go back and revisit The Lawnmower Man, or perhaps see it for the first time.
Also, for any of you who weren't paying attention, there was actually a second movie on one of our podcasts that you may not have noticed.
Which one?
Well, I don't want to mention the show because I don't want to say the first movie and overshadow the other again.
All right.
But we also, we did a film called Shorts a while ago.
Oh, yeah, no one saw that.
Yeah, so watch Shorts.
That's actually out on DVD now. You don't have to go to a theater to see it. A Scanner Darkly was pretty popular, so maybe you saw it, but you should see that shit again, because that was probably one of the better movies we've done all goddamn year. Mm-hmm. And also Repo. Repo the Genetic Opera, people didn't see that.
Yeah.
Repo fans listened to our show, but fans of our show did not watch Repo. So you got to return the favor. Go watch Repo, you might actually have fun.
Right. And if you didn't watch Slither, you're missing...
Oh yeah, that's another one,
You're missing out on a chance to see some very horrendous horror movie moments.
Yeah, comedy and horror at its finest.
You're wasting your life, really.
But you still got about 2 hours to spare. As much as you're wasting it, you have 2 hours to come and listen to our ridiculously long, rambling, semi-live show next week.
So there's the fucking list. Watch more fucking film.
Bye.